Sorry. So now we seen student info code coverage is a 100% we have. Now let's write a code coverage for a batch class. System debugs and commented lines will not be considered as a lines that need to be covered. Those lines are ignored as part of a code coverage lines. Now let's write a test class for this batch class. File, new apex class, and then a test. Okay. So what's the first thing? So we need to enter it as a is test, and then we should have a methods is test, private, static, void, test, batch, example. That's it. So I need to call this batch class. So how to call this batch class? We have to execute the batch class. That's it. Database dot execute batch. Here we will give a that batch class instance. So object one equal to new object. Then we'll pass this object one over here. That's it. We're trying to execute this batch class. Okay, if what we're missing here, we're not putting this on start test and stop test. Otherwise, it will not be converted to a synchronous apex. So if we run here, nothing will happen. So if you want to enter into execute method, first step you need to do is, so we need to give a test dot start test, and then we have to give a test dot stop test. We have to give this, then only the bash methods will be called. And again, this query is not returning anything. Why? Because we have not created any of the test data in a account. First thing was we have to create some test data, then only it will be having some data to enter into this loop. Um, so before doing all this, well, one, and let's create one account A equal to new account. So account dot name equal to just account one, and then what other fields we need to fill. The rating equal to what we need to fill, and then what else we have. We need to give a website dot website.com. I have that's it. Insert a. So I'm going to create only one account for testing purpose, and that's it. Okay, any other errors I have? Okay, that's all I'm having. Now let's run this test and see. Okay. Oh. So might have some failure here. Yes. So we have failure. So none of the lines are executed. So we need to check what's the failure. Update fail. Who updated it? So it's saying update failed. Field values next option phone or fax not to be there. Okay, are we updating anything over here? Okay, so we should have a fax or phone. Let's give a phone number over here. We can check where actually the error is coming in. DML exception, and we're saying a future method to update account site. So we have a future method that is running while account is inserted, and then in future method we are filling some account number from fax number or something. We have some logic to do. Actually, it is coming from an account trigger handler. Future method to update account site. There actually we having an issue. It's throwing in custom exception. So let's give a phone number and save and run the code. Okay, running the code. So now I don't have any exception. It's success. If I check the log here, it's also fine. I'll check the coverage. So it's covering all the lines. That's it. So what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to execute a batch query on the accounts and then executing a batch. That's it. So actually just counting, we don't have any expectations over here. So that's how writing a batch test class to a batch. Let's say if I would like to write a one more method to it. So I have created a one record here. Do you think that record will be exist while I'm calling the second method or not? Any guess? So I created one record over here in the method one, and in method two also I'm trying to call the same a batch class. Do you think the same data will be available in the method two? Let the run test. Okay, now here overall coverage is 100, and this is the method one test one batch example 100. If I give to a second method test two, this is giving only 41% of code coverage. Why? It's saying there is no accounts being entered. So what it means? So whatever the test data that you created inside any of the test method will be the lifespan of that will be only to that method only. That test data will not be available for the other methods. But if you want to create a test data or like a piece of code that has to be created test data for all the methods commonly, then what we need to do was we need to create a method called um, private static void method. Let's say you can create some create test data, and this method need to be annotated with the @ test setup. And just you can move your code piece of code to this method, and you're not calling that method anywhere, just you're annotating with the test setup. So what will happen was when you annotate any method with a test setup in a test class, so before you calling any method or like before you're executing any method, test setup will be called and it will create the test data, then only it will start from the first line. That's what a test setup does. So if you have some data that need to be created test data, and you no need to have that repeated code all the places, you can have it in a test setup so that that method will be called every time any test method will be getting executed. Okay, so now let's see how it is. Overall is 100. and test method 1 is is the test 2 is 100 and test 1 also 100, that is. So you see it, the drop down you can see test method 100, test method 2 also 100. So when you have a test setup method is being used, that method can be commonly used by the all methods for testing, setting up the test data. Okay, now if you see there you see for triggers also you got some coverage. How we got coverage for the triggers? When a trigger will be called, when you create an account or update an account, something happened on account, then only a trigger will be called, right? So in your test class, what you did, you created a account. So what will happen? It will fire all the insert triggers. So you have a after triggers, you have some insert. In before triggers also you have some insert. So those triggers are called. Now let's write a um, let's write a test class for a triggers. Okay, file new. I would say the test class for this one. So what should the first thing? We need to annotate with the is test so that it will be known as a test class is test and private static void and your test account trigger. Now here in the account handler, from where we're getting this code is being called from a account triggers only, right? Let's take the before account trigger example. So when this piece will be called, or like this trigger will be called when before insert, before update, and before delete. So you have to perform a insert DML operation, update DML operation, and delete DML operation, so that all these events will be called and all lines will be get called. Okay, so let's create an account and update it and then delete it so that all methods will be covered. So I'm going to do create an account and then I'd like to update an same account a dot annual revenue equal to, I will just give some value over here and then I do update account and then I'd like to delete an account. Okay, that's it. I'm trying to do all the operations and see what will happen in the account before trigger. Okay, see account before trigger, it's giving a 100% code coverage. Why? Because I did all the operations. So it covering all the lines. Next, coming to account trigger handler. Even though I'm calling all the events, there might be um, missing part because of some conditions. Okay, so you having those all are the error conditions. So when you have some error conditions in your trigger, what will happen, so let's say if you have to execute that line so that you will know whether it's adding that line or not. Okay, first we will check why some lines are not covered and how to cover those lines. Okay, so check for a account before delete. So in the before delete, what I'm having, whether you having an account or not, we need to check. So if you have the account, then what we are doing, we are trying to add a error message to it. Okay, that is what we are doing. Okay, actually this is 73%. Okay, it got created a contact, and then why we are not getting this error? We should get the error at OC. So even though it's giving 100% coverage, but this is a failed one. You have this exception got triggered. That is saying, because you have some contact record and your account is not allowed to delete. So in those scenarios, we need to cover this line of code, but um, we should not get this exception. We have to handle this exception. Then how we can do from the test classes is actually when we are getting when we are trying to delete, then only we are getting an exception, right? So there, what we will do was we will put a try catch block, and in the try catch block inside, we'll put this one, and here we will have a catch block, and here we'll say it is a DML exception, I guess. So DMLEX, and here. So this is the expected error. So what is that? DML exception dot get DML message of a index, so 0. So when we're trying to delete, we know that we'll get some error message. That's what we configured over here. The error message is you have some contact related account, so and so. You'll be getting that error message and you will know that. Okay, now save it. So because we are getting exception, we are handling that exception by using a try catch block. Before we got this delete failed. Now run test. So now you did not get that delete exception. Okay. Now let's just debug values. Expected error. You have some contact where account so on so blah blah blah. You have that message. So what is my expectation? I want this value to be expected. I know, right? So how I going to add this um was system dot asset equals expected. So expected value is, this is the expected value, and the actual value is what is my DML exception message. This is what my actual expected value is. So this is how we will add assets. So if I run again, because I gave a correct message, so it has to pass. If in case I was missing some space or typo here in my expected value or result value, or like some time later you change your message, then what will happen when you run the batch? Again, it will fail, saying that asset failed, expected value is something and actual value is something. So this is how asset values help you to pass your test classes, whether you have passed your test classes or not. So here I will show you the how to check. So expected you so I give some typo, right? You have some thing, and actual value is, here you see actual is, you have something like this. So it will tell why the assertion was failed and what is expected and what is the actual value, sir. So this is how you will give a asset equals thing. And now you have your trigger handlers. And trigger handler, that is before trigger. Okay, I changed the class. So now the test class are passed with the right symbol. So you don't have anything, and you can check what is the code coverage. Overall is 100, and you have this one also as 100% code coverage. Now go to the handler. You have 87% of your code coverage, right? Now, if you look at here, one line is not covered here. Why is line is not covered? So when you are having uh, multiple contacts to this accounts, so the second line will be execute when it will executed when single account is having a multiple contacts, then only this will execute it. This is not wrong because your test data having only one contact. That's why it only executed first line. If you have multiple contacts on same account, then this line will be executed. So let's create a one more contact for this account record. So let's create a contact. So this one I'd like to give a last name, my second contact, 7 dot account ID equal to a dot ID. I'm going to insert the contact. So when I have second contact also created, and when we checking the delete operation, sorry, this has to be C1. When we're doing a delete, so one contact will be created from a few some future method or somewhere we are calling it, that will be called, and the second contact will be called from here. So you'll be having two contacts, and your DML one you'll be getting that line will be covered. Okay, so it passed, and I will check this one. So see, previously this line is not covered, but because I have multiple contacts, like more than one contact, so the second line also got covered. Now, so check phone and fax before update. So if you don't having both phone and fax, then this will fail. So let's create a one more method here. Mm, test account trigger before update. So have an account. So there, what we're trying to check here, phone and fax. If both are blank, then we're going to get an exception, right? So let's say I'm not going to give the phone, and if I try to an update, so let's run test. So we have the one failure. The failure reason is saying update failed with exception. So we have some exception over there, right? Because when the phone or fax is not there, it's saying a custom add exception. Either phone and fax should be populated before updating an account. So here in your test class, what you have to do here to handle it. So that was expected error. So you want to cover that line. But it's throwing like an exception. So how to handle it? By building a try catch block. Try catch block, and here we'll be having a DML exception, DML exception, and then try. I'm going to move this to a try block, and here we're going to give. So this is what the message I'm going to expect. So this is what a exception I'm expecting. So and save and run test. Now we'll check whether we get exception or not, because we're handling this exception now. Okay, still we are getting a exception. Okay, let's see what his exception was. So update failed. So when we are getting this exception for first time. It's not because of this one, it's because of something else we're getting this one. So before trigger, we are getting this exception. Update failed with the custom error 122 line. So it's in a future method. Okay. So it's saying when it's getting triggered is a in account trigger handler future method to update account site. In this handler future method to update site 122 line. So here we are updating. So what we're trying to update here. When this method is being called, then it is again updating a site. So actually when this is going to be called, so we need to check the thing before or after update, after insert. It's not in the before trigger, so maybe it's in the after trigger. After trigger we are calling this one. So in after trigger one we are calling when after insert is happening, we're trying to call this one. So account IDs. So what are these account IDs are? So basically in the insert itself, you have this future method is getting called, and in the future method, we are trying to update the account again. So what we have to do? So we have to put our try catch on a account itself now. So where it is here, So we have to have the same piece of block on insert itself. So insert an account and handling the error. After insert, future method is called to update account. So now run. Still it's failing. Cool. Okay, I think this failing in a method one maybe itself. Method one is nothing there. So, so update failed, same error message 122. So 122 is an update. From after trigger, we're calling that account IDs and the account handler. So we're trying to query it, and if the site is blank, if we're giving a site and then doing an update. Okay. So this is a future method. So it is actually getting the error in a different thread. So if you want to handle it properly, then what we have to do is we have to convert this into a like asynchronous to a synchronous. Then what we have to do here was we have to give a start test and a test data. Stop test we have to give. Then only we can handle it. Okay, and then run. Again, still we are getting. I'll call only this. Only 122 line only we are having. I give it like a normal exception. Hmm. This looks really weird. So before insert, after insert, and then update started, after update, well again before update, after update, before update, after update. Okay, we are actually running into a block here. So actually we are running into a what we call mm, not block, just new run, before update, run. Insert, then after insert, then we have this future method call that's calling a before update. So the before update, we have all this one. After that, this has to be given. Getting called as a 1222, saying update is failed. But we get start test and stop test, so it has to convert it. So we have update over here. I'm adding an exception over here, exception handling.